are going to get. Welcome to the Blue Lake City Council meeting of Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. It's 6:30. This is a regular council meeting. Some people are here via Zoom and some of us are in person. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, would you establish a quorum of the council, Mandy Mager?
Yes, Mayor Jones,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hogan, here, Councilmember Curran,
Here.
Councilmember McCree,
Here.
Councilmember Biden. Who's absent?
Okay, and Councilmember Biden is absent. Okay. Our second business is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone like to make any changes of the agenda from the council? Anyone from audience want to make any changes? Back to council for a motion and a vote.
I'll move we approve the agenda as is.
I'll second.
Thank you, Elaine Hogan and Chris Barron. Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as delivered. Any further discussion from council? From public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Public comment. The public is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the city council that is relevant to the scope of authority of the city of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. The council may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. To assure that each individual presentation is heard, the council may uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time the council takes up each specific agenda item. Is there anyone here for public comment? Yes, Councilor.
I wanted to give you two topics. One's a brief thing about the Emporium building down there. Years ago, I bought that from Annabelle Shaw. We restored it. And we had the Emporium in there where some ladies were basically had all their goods and different things, and they kind of shared, taken care of. Never made any money, broke even, for just barely paid, maybe paid some of the taxes or insurance. And then, of course, we had somebody come and a person wanted to put an Ace Hardware in. Well, there was a major miscommunication that I wasn't involved in, where the person thought I was going to sell it to them and carry back the paper and things. And of course, she put a whole bunch of time into the project and then found out that wasn't true. So there was a little staff miscommunication with that person, not involving me in the direct communication. Then I had somebody who wanted to put in a grocery store, and that didn't seem to be penciling out. I checked personally with, I am a friend with Richard Murphy of Murphy's Market, kind of get an idea, is that going to be feasible? Really didn't sound like it was going to be a viable thing, as far as I could tell. And then I had my last thing where this person wanted to put in this, well, what irritated me, I found out later she was going to turn all my renters' places into Airbnb. They were going to be out on the street. And she missed a few deadlines and did a few other things I didn't approve of in the negotiations there. Her time ran out, and so that clock ran out. Besides, the building had gone up in 15% value more than what the negotiated price was. So I basically now have it, and I'm hoping to move forward with it. So that's kind of a little bit of that part of what we need. And I had somebody approach me who have other things, potential business. We need your staff to work on some loans or CBD grant money, or not grant money, but loan money or something, to enable us to do these projects here. We'd rather have you spend the time working with those smaller people. I don't necessarily need it, but it'd be nice, and help them have their businesses rather than one large project that you'll be talking about a little later. The other thing I needed to bring to your attention is you don't have a certified levy, and you don't even have a levy for quite a bit of your thing. If you go down the industrial park, down at the end, you walk down your trail, that's the end of what used to be the levy. Beyond that is nothing but a bank. And some of it's been hardened off. But at one time, I think you go through Ken Dowling, and he had all the plans you needed to go ahead and actually protect the rest of the city. It's like the finger in the dike. If your weakest point, the water is going to come in, and you're going to lose. You're going to flood the whole city. That's just how it works.
Oh.
along with Powers Creek. You know, you have Powers Creek feeding it. So you got some hydrology you need to take care of. I recommend you take some time and get some study done, or go back to the old study that was performed by Oscar Larson with Ken Dowler. So thank you for the opportunity to have my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak publicly on a non-agenda item? Seeing no hands, we'll move on then to item 4, proclamation honoring June 2022 as National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. This is an action item. We have the proclamation here, and I usually read these after we pass them. I don't think there's anyone here from the Alzheimer's. Is there anyone zooming in from
I don't
Alzheimer's?
see anybody.
No, okay. All right. Can I have a motion to proclaim June as National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and then I will read the proclamation.
I'll move that we honor June as National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month.
I'll second. Thank you. Motion made by Chris Curran, seconded by Elaine Hogan to proclaim June 2022 as National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Is there any further discussion from council? Anything from audience? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Proclamation honoring June 2022 as National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Whereas today there are more than 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease, a figure that is expected to grow to as many as 13 million by 2050 if scientists don't develop a cure or an effective treatment. Whereas 1 in 3 seniors die with Alzheimer's or another dementia, it kills people more than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. Between 2022 and 2019, deaths from heart disease have decreased 7.3%, while deaths from Alzheimer's disease have increased by 145%. Whereas more than 11 million Americans provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias, in 2021, these caregivers provided more than 16 billion hours of care, valued at nearly $272 billion. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is a local issue, our friends and neighbors need access to support and resources to lessen the disease's impacts. In Humboldt County, it is estimated that about 3,384 people currently live with Alzheimer's and related dementias. There are another 7,600 caregivers who are caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's. Whereas in 2020, COVID-19 contributed to a 17% increase in Alzheimer's and dementia deaths. Whereas fewer than 1 in 5 Americans are familiar with mild cognitive impairment, MCI, which can be an early stage of Alzheimer's. 90% of physicians say it's important to diagnose MCI due to Alzheimer's, but over half say they are not fully comfortable making that diagnosis. Yeah. A couple of these things can be changed before I sign the document. Whereas during June, the Alzheimer's Association invites Humboldt County residents to participate in the longest day, 21st. Held annually on the summer solstice, the longest day invites participants to fight the darkness of Alzheimer's through a fundraising activity of their choice or by wearing purple. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of Blue Lake, California, do hereby proclaim the month of June as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. The council thanks the Alzheimer's Association for providing services to people and families coping with dementia. Sign and seal at Blue Lake, California, this 24th day of May 2022, and I will sign it. Did you get those two?
I do. The two
COVID-19
changes.
and the diagnosis.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, we copied this from their document, so.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I didn't even.
Maybe they had Alzheimer's.
I know.
Uh-oh. Did you see any other corrections or
I didn't,
additions?
no.
Okay, all right, good, thanks. Okay, that was item 4. All right, we're now on item 5, closed session, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Conference with real property negotiators, Government Code Number 54956.8, property approximately 3 acres of land and is a portion of the parcel designated as assessor's parcel number 312-161-018 and 312-161-015. City of Blue Lake negotiators Amanda Mager, city manager Ethan Walsh, and Russ Gantz, attorneys for city. Negotiating partners negotiating with Danco Communities, a California corporation, Chris Dart, Mackenzie Dibble. Under negotiation, price and or terms of payments, condition, ground lease, and development agreement. Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll move we go into closed session.
I'll second.
Motion made by Elaine Hogan, seconded by, is that Chris Curran?
Yes.
To go into closed session. Is there any further discussion from council? Anything from audience?
Kinswowski, yes, I would like to,
Could you start pushing the minutes? Yes, thank you.
I'd like to make a mention a little bit of what I mentioned before regarding the lack of functionality of your levy. Like I said, it's been decertified. What happens in a levy like this is, let's say you have water on the outside of the levee that comes up to within 1 foot of the top of the levee. Depending on how long it rains, eventually that water will come back up the creek, or else the creek will flood this thing. We do have some pictures that will probably show you a little bit more what happened during flooding. Somebody said they had a video on a VCR back when it actually flooded. So I think you may need to do a little more disclosure as far as potential flooding. I know it's mapped. In my opinion, it's mapped 100% incorrectly under the circumstances. And I think that would be transparency. Number two, very few of us have much faith in there that you're going to receive much as far as your sales tax. Because of location where it's at. So the way you build something into this, basically, I don't know how much were you told you were supposed to receive on sales tax? I don't know. That was never told to me. I don't know. It's probably been told to you. 50,000, 75,000. You kind of have a need to know what's being promised to you or your anticipated benefit is, because that's the biggest benefit. And I think I mentioned to a few of you the way to ensure that you have a lease of a $1 a year is my understanding. Well, you get a guarantee. In other words, getting 35,000 the first year, 50 and 75 the next year. Well, that lease goes up. In other words, if you don't get any, let's say it doesn't rent. Let's say it rents to a grocery store or a manufacturer who's not generating any sales tax, not making any sales to the public. Then you have a guarantee you're going to get something out of the project. That would be borne, of course, at risk by the Danco Corporation. On the other hand, you may end up with something where you're not getting any sales tax out of it. Just a way you can go ahead and ensure that the city's going to get the benefit that's being promised and everybody's optimistic you're going to get. Eliminate the risk of it and pass the risk on to somebody else. I think that's a fair exchange for what's been promised to the public here regarding the benefit of the project. So that's a request you might consider. You can negotiate that. That's part of your negotiations you're in. If they're not willing to do that, then maybe you say, well, maybe they don't think they're going to have any sales tax benefit for you. You might want to look at the whole project from that viewpoint. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ken. Is there any other comment from public before we go into closed session? Okay, back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. We're in closed session.
So that means we leave.
You have to leave until 7:30.
Or put on the cloak of invisibility and sit in the chair.
Sorry.
Hope you have a nice visit here.
Hold on just a quick second.
Just uncheck that box that says report. Oh, do we need a motion to get out of closed session, Russ? Yes, we do.
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion to adjourn the closed session. Yeah.
I'll move that we adjourn closed session.
Thank you, Chris. Unmuted.
I'll motion we move out of closed session, or
Well,
I second.
Yeah,
the
Chris
motion.
motion, Elaine Hogan seconded to come out of closed session. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Out of closed session, okay. Hi. Okay, let it be noted in the minutes that there was no action taken in closed session.
Oh, and then we have to work those two formularies.
Oh, yeah. So there was no action taken in closed session. That was item 5. So we are on item 6, which is review / approve disposition and development agreement with Danco Communities Properties, approximately 3 acres of land, and in a portion of the city of Blue Lakes parcel designated as assessor's parcel number 312-161-018 and 312-161-015. Possible action item. So in discussing the DDA, we did notice a few areas that we would like to have stay on page 14. When it talked about the 40 residential units ranging from the blanks were to be filled in 450. And then there's a few other things that we'll need to have before we can pass the final document. So it's still in draft form. Also on page 2, we need an estimate of the costs, which staff will get to us before we can finally pass this. So probably we'll not be passing this evening. We'll probably have to have a special meeting. We're looking at probably June 7th at 7 o'clock. By that time, I think staff will have the necessary items filled in for our approval.
And if I may, Madam Mayor,
Sure.
couple of points I'd like to make to the council. As we discussed and noted in closed session, in section 32 or page 32, section 1000 of the Disposition and Development Agreement, it contemplates that the agreement will be executed by the developer and delivered to the city. And then that starts a 45-day period after the date of signature by the developer for the city to review and approve and sign the development agreement. So with the council's instruction, recommendation to be that you instruct staff to finalize the budget and deposit amount in section 106 based on the cost estimates that your city manager is completing and finalizing. Also to add the square footage limits within section 402 of the draft agreement, and then to append all the final exhibits, then submit that to Danco for review, approval, and signature if agreeable to Danco, and then return it to the council for final approval in accord with section 1000 of the agreement.
So we need a motion to proceed with that. Is there any questions or comments from council first on what needs to occur? Ben?
Yeah, strictly speaking, we don't need a special meeting because we have 45 days to sign it after it's returned to us signed, which is an unknown date once it's filled out. So I would prefer just to make this an agenda item at the next council meeting, which will be in 30-ish days, which meets our 45-day window. Also, I won't be here on the 7th or any time during that week. So.
Oh, you can't be here on the 7th. Okay,
No.
You're right, we don't need. We don't.
But we have 45 days, so we can just agendize it for the next meeting, regular meeting.
Okay. So we can move that staff make the changes that Russ mentioned and then get it to Danco for signature, and upon their approval, they get it back to us, and then at the next regular meeting. we do the final. So that would be the 28th of June.
And Russ, in that language, would you be identifying that the council will sign the final at the meeting, or they would be considering signing at that meeting?
Yeah, it's contemplated that what will be presented to the council would be a final signed disposition and development agreement signed by the developer, submitted to the council for approval and direction to for signature. But to be, again, for clarity of record, there are very limited terms that are open, and that'll be submitted to the council in the final form of the document, as we've been discussing. So.
And we have added an addendum per the approval of the developer that will include public improvements such as paving of Powers Creek District Trail and installation of street furniture, for example, benches, interpretive signage, or installations, etc. On-site playground, on-site bike parking, covered and uncovered, contribution to the bike park development on parcel 312-161-1018, which is adjoining. Taylor Way improvements, bus stop, off-site parking along Taylor Way or in city-owned parcel 024-091-022. Native landscaping improvements to the intersection of Taylor Way and Hatfield Road, bike and pedestrian improvements along Broderick Lane, low impact development to reduce all site impacts to stormwater collection and Powers Creek, upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant, including additional aeration and assorted upgrades to the electrical panel to accommodate the additional wastewater loads from the project. So this is something that we have added and have not had an objection yet from the developer, so it will be part of the document. So I guess what we need is to direct staff to make the necessary adjustments and changes.
Do it in the form of a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would like to make a motion that we direct staff to make the changes that we requested that were previously outlined by our attorney, and to deliver the amended agreement to Danco for their consideration and signature.
I second.
Motion made by Elaine Hogan, second by Chris Kieran. Is there any further discussion from council? Any discussion from the public?
About, I have I'm not sure this is the right time. Should I take my mask? Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you fine with it on.
Yeah, hi, Lisa Hoover. I just wondered when I looked at the document, I just had to scan it really fast, and I noticed that there were mention of permits, but I wondered, does that include CEQA? Because I was at a meeting last night, and I'm under the impression that Danco is going to be responsible for the CEQA, but I did not see that, and there's no search option in that document format, but I did not see CEQA actually mentioned. But it's my understanding that Danco would be taking on that part of it. But I did not see that in there in terms of, I just saw permits for state and federal permits and local permits. So I wondered, there's an obligation there, and I did not see that specified. Unless I didn't see, unless my scanning of all those pages didn't result in that. So I would like to see, that's what I understood from yesterday's meeting, in other words, that SEEK would be done by Danco.
Yeah, and it's at the planning, and my understanding is it's going to be at the planning commission level. That's when CEQA is.
But their obligations and commitments, or what they're supposed to do in terms of performances and things like that. To have CEQA compliance seems like that's on the list of to-do things, and I did not see that in there. So I would ask that something related to that be added to that.
Is there any other public comment? Anyone on Zoom wanting to make a public comment? I don't see any hands raised, so we'll come back to the council for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes 4-0 with one person absent. Okay, so we will bring this back to the council at our regular June 28th meeting.
Did that make sense, Mackenzie, what they're doing? Did you catch all that?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you, Mandy.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we're moving on to item 7. Water and wastewater rate study presentation. I don't think that our presenter is here this evening.
Nope, Bridget is not here, so we can.
So I think we're going to have to continue this item to our next meeting. On to item 8, Powers Creek District Development Update, Discussion and Direction. The first item is A, Storyline Update, Powers Creek District Economic Analysis, Branding, Discussion and Update. We received in our packets an update from Storyland, a little more detailed, I think, from what I could see, diagram of what the project would look like, even in sort of a 3-dimensional form, which was really exciting. Did you want to?
Yeah, so
start us on this?
so this is just an introduction to this. We didn't provide this out to the public yet. We just wanted to give council kind of a glimpse of some of the work that's taking place as part of this update. Storyland is moving forward with the feasibility study. They're completing the pro formas and economic analysis, as well as a bunch of the behind the scenes, environmental and engineering analysis that go as part of determining if this is a feasible project and kind of what the scope and scale could be. They're making some really good progress, and we've reviewed some of the preliminary numbers, and the numbers are very positive. They are running pretty conservative, and the numbers look really, really good, and I think they'll be very attractive for an investor and investment group. They'll be presenting some of this first iterations of what the project could look like and some of the numbers to some of our local and regional economic development and tourism partners. So we're going to be meeting with REDEC, AEDC, the local tourism bureau. I had a conversation with Julie Benbow from the Visitors Bureau. She's very excited about the idea of the city developing an RV park and campground, because it is very much kind of a missing amenity for our region, and having a new park with upscale amenities is something that'd be very valuable on a regional level for them to market. So we'll be taking that, will be kind of our next step. That was part of our grant application too. Capturing our match dollars was to participate with our local and regional partners through this process, so that we could make sure that our project was in line with the economic development strategy that we've all signed on to. So the county says, and making sure that we're moving in kind of a concert direction with the region as we look at tourism development and opportunities. So we're excited to kind of take that next step. And I think they're very good at creating that vision, which was exciting, because I think that's something we've really been lacking, is how do we start to translate this to something that's more dimensional and not just kind of some ideas generated, but to be able to lay that out on the site and really see how things can fit and how they start to connect. It's going to be really valuable as we move through the process.
So when can this be put out to the public?
Yeah, so I think the next step will be working with those local and regional partners, and then we'll be bringing back to the community, bringing back to our commissions this presentation. I know Blake wants to be able to present that. That's also a big part of this process, is making sure that our commissions and our public are part of the vetting process and the analysis and review, so that we have something that, you know, it's definitely not going to be all by consensus, but letting people be part of that process is important. So they'll be scheduling those next steps in that here soon. So that's exciting. I was really excited when I saw the numbers and just kind of looking at what the investment is. You know, it's looking to be probably between a $10 to $13 million project, but with even the conservative numbers, it's looking like there could be a pretty strong payoff in about 7 years, which is really good for this type of project. So I think that's really exciting to see, and I think will help us to attract, you know, some real interest in the project.
Will it bring $100,000 a year to the city? Because that's what we're losing. Why not for power leads? Really power lead. I know. Okay, is there any other questions or comments from council on this item? It's a non-action item. Is there any?
It's just an update.
Is there any? Yeah, is there any questions?
Maybe you said about, so there'd be another public meeting like was held and it well advertised like we had before. You mentioned that for the community.
Yeah, we're going to want to present kind of where we are in the process and what Storyland has come up with today.
Just always going to just reiterate that, encourage that for the city for those meetings for Storyland and Danco. Thank you.
Yeah, you're valuable. We agree.
Yeah.
All right. And any other comments from anyone in the Zoom audience? I don't see anything. So we are going to move on to 8B, bike park status update discussion.
Yeah, so the bike park project is moving forward. We've been actively fundraising, and we just got a call yesterday from PG&E that they want to contribute $3,000 to the project to help move it forward, which was really exciting. They have a small grant program, and because of the impacts from the gas line replacement and everything that's happening, Allison had gotten a hold of me and was like, can we give you guys some money for your bike park? I was like, absolutely. So there's just a small application for that. So we'll be applying for that. And we think the best use of that money is to pay for the final topo map and grade, so we can develop our final grading plan, because that's kind of the biggest factor right now, is we want to make sure that we grade the site accurately, adequately, so that we don't create any ponding or have any issues, and we can direct, you know, any runoff into the storm drain. So so that's probably our next step. At the same time, we're also actively seeking materials. There's a lot of construction going on right now, and so there's opportunities to take some of those materials, especially anything with the clay in it or the dirt track. So we're starting to stockpile those materials and making some inroads on some other projects that have large quantities of adequate material for the project to be donated to the project. So that's exciting. There's just a lot of enthusiasm for the project, the biking community. We get calls all the time from people who hear about the project. We've been doing some local outreach. We have the citizens in town who have been donating. So we've been doing some regular updates. Emily's been really good about creating flyers, thanking people, and just kind of keeping people updated as much as possible. We don't have a full marketing, department by any means, but she's doing a good job of thanking people and keeping it at the forefront. So it's been a really fun project, and we're really excited to see it continue to move forward.
Okay, any questions from council about the update on the bike park? Any questions or comments from public on this item? All right, we'll move back to our agenda. We're on item 8C, which is the Corporation Yard Development Discussion and Update.
Yeah, so the courtyard has, let's see, tomorrow will be the end of its 60-day noticing cycle for the Surplus Lands Act. And to date, we have not received any notice of interest from an affordable housing developer for that project. So once that process is complete, we'll notice HCD that we completed the notification process. That was noticed to all of the affordable housing developers on HCD's site and also to our local jurisdictions as required by the state. This will allow the city to then pursue additional development options. And we are in conversation still with the Comer family who has RMI about the development of a recreation grocery type mercantile bike shop on that site. So we'll be meeting with Dan Comer and his wife Lacey in the upcoming weeks to continue that conversation and to see what we can bring back to council for some consideration.
Do we need to, have we determined that this is surplus land, or do we need to do that?
That's the process we've gone through. So yeah, so it's been noticed for the 60 days. It's done tomorrow. So that was part of the process that we have to go through to meet the Surplus Lands Act.
Okay.
So that's what I understand. They first have to look at it for housing first, and that's what you went out for, and then you can do something. I'm sorry.
And as far as the courtyard goes, how much work do we need to do to get it cleaned up to be where it's at? Because there is a trailer there and another building. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of concerned as to what the timeline is. We don't want to get rid of everything if we're still using it, but at the same time, we want it to look good enough for a vision,
Right.
for someone who want to develop it.
Yeah, I mean, the city's needed to clean up that site for a long time. The trailer is at the end of its useful life. It needs, the staff needs to relocate. There's a lot of material on that site that's not necessary. There's a lot of stuff that's been there for decades. That can go. Yeah, we were talking, maybe we would invite American pickers to come down and see. And there's some due diligence that we need to do on the site as well. We've had a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental on the site, so that's good. We will probably need a cultural review of the site, mostly for the a historic determination for the building. We don't believe that the building will qualify, but it has been there for over 50 years. It's been modified numerous times. So I don't believe that it will have any significance, but it may just need to be documented. So we would probably, our next step would probably be to hire Bill Rich, who's kind of the local expert on historic buildings to be able to go through that process. And then we're starting to, identify items that need to go. We're going to be sponsoring in partnership with Caltrans a Clean California Dump Day. And I believe it's going to be on July 16th. And they want as much garbage as anyone can bring down there. So we're going to stage at the Corbell Mill site. And it's going to be a pretty big, it's only 4 hours, but they've done this in other jurisdictions and they've removed tens of thousands of tons of trash and hundreds and thousands of tires and things. So it's a really good opportunity. So we're going to try and get a lot of stuff geared up for the courtyard as well to go down there and take advantage of that. There's also a lot of just green waste on the site, piles of, scrapings from the streets and things that, can go. And so I don't think it's going to be too hard to clean up, but it needs to happen anyways, no matter if we have an offer or an opportunity to develop it, it needs to be cleaned up anyways. So.
Any questions from council concerning this item?
Looks like there's a hand
From
up.
the public concerning this item?
Just a question, RMI is, the reason I keep hearing them, are they going to, what was the interest in the type of business they would have at that site? What is that? Is that?
It's a
sporting?
Yeah, it's bait and tackle and that kind of thing.
Recreation, camping, water recreation, fishing.
They're in Eureka currently.
Yeah.
I guess my fundamental question is going to be, they sell guns at the Eureka store.
Mm.
So that would be,
And ammunition.
yeah. And so my concern, and I know certain Ace Hardwares do as well, not the one in Arcata. So the city of Arcata actually has a limit on that. Would that be something? I mean, I have a concern, and so do others, about that RMI sells
Yeah,
ammo
that's a
and
good point.
guns.
Just brought it up.
That's a good point.
There's also, I mean, I think you would have to balance that out, because there's also a huge contingency of like residents that hunt and fish and, you know, so.
Well,
There are other places
places.
there are other places to get that as well, but into the
Hmm.
city, I would ask that be restricted from RMIs. If that's the entity that moves forward with it, or any entity for that matter,
Good suggestion.
because I go by there on my way to work, and so
Right.
it didn't dawn on me, and then someone mentioned it to me as well.
Didn't dawn on me either until you just mentioned it, so thank you for that. We'll look into that for sure. Any other questions or comments?
Well, yes, it's Lori Ponte, and
Oh,
I would like Lisa's concern highlighted, and it's not RMI as a whole, but it's just the portion of guns and ammunition that if they're willing to work with the community, and I know there are people who are looking for those products, but they can go to McKinleyville, they can go to Eureka and get them. But I would like to see the city of Blue Lake not accept those items as something that we would want to sell in our town, in our city. And it looks like Hensel's in McKinleyville sells guns and ammunition. In Arcata, no. In Eureka, yes. So I'm just wondering if the city can look at the idea of that not being something that we want to have in the city. And there may be a lot of people that would want to have that also.
Is there, can you look into, Mandy, how Arcata is handling that issue? Because it sounds like they're not allowing that in.
At
their-
least at Hensel's, they're not.
Yeah,
But Schaefer's, Ace Hardware in McKinleyville does. The Ace Hardware in Eureka does. RMI is in Eureka. I just think that component in this small community, especially with some of the things that are happening in other small communities in this country, that guns and ammunition shouldn't be part of what we have to sell.
right. Well, McKinleyville is not an incorporated city, so I'm not interested in how they are dealing with it, but I am interested in, for instance, Arcata's. Arcata being an incorporated city, I'm interested in how they are restricting that from being sold in their city limits.
Well, whether I mean, the city of Blue Lake can have their own limits to what's acceptable.
Right.
I think ask Arcata, but I think the city of Blue Lake can also do that.
Well, I know, I agree. I'm trying to tell or ask direct staff to look into how Arcata has dealt with it so that we don't have to invent the wheel necessarily. And our city attorney is not with us right now, so there may be some issues that I don't know about. That
And maybe, okay, but I mean, I think if there's sustained conversation with RMI, as I understand, there might be, it might be something that they're willing to do and just leave that piece out.
Yeah, they might be. Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments about the corporation yard development? All right, we'll move on to item 9, city manager evaluation ad hoc committee discussion and action. Elaine and I are on the ad hoc committee, and we are meeting on June 1st at 6:30 at night. Go over the first steps in this process. So that's where we're at on that. All right, item 10, council correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
You did have a letter from Jean Lynch that she sent to you. I think it was just sent this morning. It did not get into the packet because it wasn't received in time.
Yeah.
So I don't have it as part of the information, but it was sent email to you all separately as well.
It was? Oh, I didn't see
I
anything
saw it in the
today.
council.
Oh,
I think it was it was a question referring to the affordability covenants or restrictions and the EDA.
34.
You might have got something about Article 34 as well, but it wasn't received in time for motion.
Yeah, I
So we can include it on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you. Article 34. And we're now on item 11, consent agenda. Is there anyone from the council that would like me to take anything off of the consent agenda? If not, are we going to have minutes of the meeting that occurred at
Yes,
the-
and they
Grange?
we had a lot of meeting minutes to prepare this
Right,
time,
I
and Gary was also finalizing official comments as part of that because some of them were directly related to the open housing element. So he wanted to make sure that they were addressed appropriately, and we don't have those completed yet, but we will have those for your next meeting.
Well, yeah, very good job on the minutes of the, it was the 10th where every person was mentioned. And that was really good for history's sake. Anyway, in that case, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda as is.
I'll second. Moved by Chris Kieran, seconded by Elaine Hogan to approve the consent agenda as delivered. Any other comments or questions from council? Anything from public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? I see hands.
Aye.
Okay, very good. All right, reports of council and staff, city manager report. Thank you for your report in our packet. It was very complete. And if there's anything you'd like to highlight that I was particularly interested in, the kitchen saga, as we call it.
Yes, we are trying. We're going out for the third time out to bid.
It's so hard to find people to do work
I
right
know.
now.
It's very difficult. We're hoping, we did have a contractor from Reading that was interested the last go around, and he didn't submit a bid. But they had some timing issues that they just weren't able to meet. So we've contacted them and said, hey, we're releasing it again. If you're still interested, they said they are interested. And so we'll be, we'll have it, we have it advertised, it's in the newspaper. We'll have it at the Builders Exchange. And then we usually do a lot of, just cold calling. Hey, we have an RFP out, we'd like us to send it to you just to try and drum up some interest. It's a really valuable project. And it's going to be very valuable on a host of different levels, for local food producers, small businesses, and then, we are working to, you know, really kind of upscale the skating rink, and having some good food where, especially families, you know, as you come in with your kids and you have to sit for hours while they skate, you know, being able to have like some nicer food and drinks and things available in a better seating area. So we have received all of our authorizations for our skate park for Capita grant. So that's going to put in the new flooring, the paint, a lot of the renovation work, the new roof. So it's a good time to just kind of make all of these improvements and kind of relaunch ourselves in the fall as kind of this, you know, revamped skating rink. I mean, skating is very nostalgic and the facility is still very nostalgic, but we can offer some nicer amenities that can drive revenue also.
So the skating rink is open on Sundays now?
We've been doing limited skate. We're just starting to bring back some staff. And so we've been doing some special skate. It's been very, very popular. Our first skate we did for free just to get people signed up to our new rec desk program, to try and get everyone's waivers done. With the new system, it's very automated. And so trying to get as many people in the system and used to it as possible, so it makes everything that much easier. It also gets us information so that we can do direct marketing and outreach and things as we have promotions and events. And then we did a second skate 2 weekends ago, and we had, you know, over 200 people in attendance both times, and so it was very popular. So we're going to keep it open on a limited basis. We're also doing a ton of rentals. It's rented constantly. So I think right now it's rented all the way through July. So that's good, because that gives us a little bit of revenue. It pays for staff, and it gives a little bit of money coming back into the system.
There was a big party there. Was it last weekend where the open door clinic 50 years or something?
That was a big party.
Large party.
Yeah. That was a pre-COVID rental, and then it got shut down. So it kind of snuck up on us a little bit, but I think it went really well. We had a lot of staff in place, and it was a big event, but our park has a lot of capacity, and we were able to, you know, coordinate everything with the different events and softball and baseball and everything. So there wasn't too much impact.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. Yeah.
So does the skating rink have regular hours?
Not right now, not right now. Yeah, we're bringing back staff for summer camp and for skating. We're trying to kind of cross-purpose them. So Emily's been running skate, helping Trevor. Trevor just learned to skate, so he can help out.
Oh boy.
I've done a party or two to help out, just, you know, volunteering to get things going. We haven't, you know, it's Parks and Recreation. See our budget, you know, there's definitely some big gaps. A lot of what you see in the now are kind of skewed because we haven't pulled over additional revenues and grants that pay for some of those expenditures, but it's always marginal, and so we have to be really cognizant. And the hourly rates have gone up quite a bit. You know, we're competing with, you know, a lot of college kids and high school kids, their first jobs anywhere now are going for, you know, $18 an hour. You know, it's so we've got to, that hit us a little bit, but we're kind of easing into it and seeing how we can get things going.
Is there, you know, I noticed that I should have probably done this council reports first, but we're in the staff reports. We'll do council reports way later, next. Are there any questions concerning the staff report from Mandy in the packet, or any other staff report?
I just had another question on the ADA library
Yeah.
model. Seems like that's been taking years. Is that moving along?
Yeah, and you're right, it has taken years, and part of that is the CDBG process, and it's one of the reasons why people don't use CDBG funding.
Okay.
It is a horribly complicated and convoluted process, and it took us over a year just to get CDBG to authorize us to spend our own CDBG funds that we had in the bank. And then COVID hit, and that set us back. So right now, at this point, we do have, the improvements are designed. I believe the final architectural drawings are being completed and we're hoping to go to construction. We'll put it out to bid. We'll see if we get a contractor. That's kind of the problem right now, is just trying to find people who want to bid on these projects. But we're anticipating maybe a late summer, early fall project. It's a pretty small project. We're bumping out a wall to increase the bathroom size. We're going to bump out around the doorway so we have a good turn radius, redo the walkway. The most exciting thing for me, I think, is getting our parking lot more accessible and having better accessible pathways. So it's got a lot of value, helping the city make some of those improvements that we needed to make anyways. We also are going to be replacing some windows at City Hall and painting City Hall. So hopefully everything can kind of come together simultaneously, and we give the whole thing kind of a little bit of a boost and an upgrade. It really needs it.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, it's taking forever.
Yeah, I was just making sure this was the project I thought it was from 2 years ago or so.
Yeah. And we don't have the staff that can tear down some walls and do all the plumbing now.
We did as much as we felt like we could, but there's just ADA is very precise, and it's something that you don't want to mess up. I mean, it's literally tenths of inches that you have to be able to shoot the grade and make sure it's sloped, and it's just something that we didn't feel that we had the carpentry expertise to take that on. And we also want to put that liability on someone else. In the event that the ADA police come in and say, hey, it's not quite right, we can go back and say, hey, you guys are contracted to make this. So I don't want to put that on Howland to do. They probably could do a great job, but it's just not, it's definitely an area of expertise that you have to maintain.
Was there any questions from council about any more of the staff report? Is there questions from public about the staff report?
I guess I'm confused of the staff report versus the agenda report. They're different things. Maybe if there's another time I just have another question related to item number 6. That was earlier, so it's different from the staff report. So, but if there is an opportunity, I just want to ask something when the time comes.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll do council reports. I'll start with you, Elaine. Did you attend a meeting that you would like to report on?
Yeah, let's see. I may have already mentioned, but I went to the League of California Cities meeting that was hosted in Eureka earlier in May.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was great. The next one is in Point Arena, August 19th, that I'll be going to as well. And then Humboldt Waste Management Authority. So working a lot with SB 1383 for organic waste diversion and edible food recovery. And so the Hawthorne Street transfer station currently in Eureka that has the recycling center is going to be repurposed in the short term to be able to accept residential organics and commercial organics. And so, yeah, so that's exciting. We already have the permit with the Department of Environmental Health, and there's a covered area there, which is part of the requirement of when you sort organic waste that has to be covered, and to protect from stormwater contamination and things like that. And yeah, so that's exciting moving forward with that. We also got a report from Hambro, who opened the CRV buyback for recycled beverage bottles in Arcata, and they report that they're doing really well. Part of them opening was HWMA agreeing for at least 6 months not to pursue bringing back CRV, no competition in the market. And with what we have to be doing with SB 1383, it really worked out because we don't have the capacity to deal with organic waste and restart CRV buyback. And so Hambro in Arcata reports that they're doing really well, and there have been minimal disruptions to traffic flow, and it seems to be a smooth running operation. So that's where the public can go to get their deposit back on the bottles that they purchase for CRV. And then, yeah, we'll be moving forward with transitioning the Eureka Recycling Center into compost sorting and processing.
On site there, they're gonna do it.
Well, some of it short term is gonna have to go out of the county, which is really not ideal. Nobody wants that, but because, you know, this all, we're supposed to have started this years and years and years ago. And so there's a lot of work being done, but we're not at the point where we have a dedicated in-county commercial composting facility on the scale that we need to have it on. And so they're working to identify sites where it will work, but that's more like the 3 to 5 year plan, and the 2 to 3 year plan is to be able to do part of what we can do. I'm trying to look and remember if it's the residential or the commercial that's going to stay here, and one of them is going to go, we don't exactly know where, but not too far out of the county. But yeah, we'll have to go somewhere else. And then also the consultants are working with our existing composting companies that do like smaller scale composting. And then there are also, you know, programs like the city of Arcata has to promote backyard composting. So that's kind of all a key component too of compliance, is encouraging people to compost and supporting local businesses that are already doing it on a small scale. So they're getting help from the consultants to apply for grants that are specific to those small scale composting operations, because they help us come into compliance too.
What are they gonna do with the compost afterwards? Are they gonna let people have it, or?
Well, yeah, we have a potential, like if the Nordic Aqua Farms goes in, to produce like a really high quality compost with the fish waste that they need to dispose of.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, instead of them having to truck it out of the county or dump it in the ocean or whatever it is they propose to do with it, we could use it in our compost and then produce a really high quality product to be sold. So we definitely have an agricultural community. So
Arcata bottoms.
yeah. And then there, I think there is a part of SB 1383 is also cities amending their policies to close the loop. So like the city, we would revise our policies and we would need to be getting that compost to use on our parks and our fields as good soil. So to create that kind of circular economy and utilize the products that are being produced from our food waste and close the gap.
And the city is, you know, we're participating in this process, and I just had a meeting with Cal Recycle yesterday. Because part of our problem is we're so small that we actually we're really not on the radar, because we don't have, especially Blue Lake, we don't have any tier 1 or 2 generators.
Right.
We qualified for the waiver, so we applied for it just because the compliance mechanisms really weren't in place yet, you know, and they want you to pass an ordinance, an enforceable ordinance, but the enforceable ordinance takes you back to like compliance in January of 2022,
Right.
and also holds, you know, some of your commercial generators to compliance standards. That it just was a very wonky process. And so I talked with Cal Recycle and I said, you know, we applied for the $20,000 grant so that we can work towards compliance and we can do some things that are more manageable for our community and can help us move forward. But taking on this level of requirements is just well beyond our reach at this point, and I don't feel comfortable. I would rather give up the 20,000 and not subject us to something that, you know, we would be setting ourselves up for fines and, you know, implementation requirements that are, well, you know, we can't afford to do. So in talking with Cal Recycle, they said, you know, we kind of messed up on that portion. You know, we can't really have you put this ordinance in place that's backdated, that requires you to do things that you already get a waiver for. And so what we are proposing to do, and I'll be bringing to you guys in June, is more of a resolution-based commitment, where we just acknowledge that we understand it, we want to be part of it, working towards it, we're embracing it, but, you know, we are also not, we also don't have the resources or capacity to take it on to the level that other jurisdictions would have, but we are definitely going to be part of the solution. And they said that was fine. They said, Point Arena, I think, actually just wrote a letter. Some of the other smaller jurisdictions are trying to write these ordinances, but they're just very cumbersome. And I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable subjecting or recommending that the city go down that route. So Cal Recycle agreed and said, a resolution will be fine. That'll get you your $20,000 grant. That's capacity planning implementation. So that will be good. That'll be good too. So we'll get through that.
Because I mean, we have Mad River Brewery is a restaurant.
And they
they're
don't meet the
generally-
threshold.
Yeah. They don't meet the threshold.
The only other one we have is the school, but they're under the state's regulations. So
Oh,
we
okay.
really don't have anyone, but we
Yeah.
want to be part of this process.
Yeah.
And our waste hauler will be able to put out the bins, and we'll be able to do some community composting education and some giveaways, and we can work with the school, and we'll be able to implement policy through our own parks and recreation and events and things. But to take on a large scale compliance situation is just a little bit beyond our scope. And it's a little bit scary when you start looking at the fines. And they're always like, oh, we wouldn't fine you, really. It's like, yeah, but we're signing up for it. So I don't feel comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you for that on my HWMA. Any other reports? Okay. Last Thursday, I attended an HCOG meeting and Humboldt County Association of Governments. We met in person for the first time in over 2 years. That was pretty exciting. They have 2 huge screens in the city hall chambers in Eureka. So we did have a couple of people Zoom in who weren't there, but most of us were actually there. And we had a very good report from Cody Rogatz, I think that's his name, Humboldt County Aviation Director, for all the 6 county airports and what's going on with the fact we have a pilot shortage right now, how the Las Vegas, the Reno, and the Phoenix flights went away. He's hoping to bring those back. The Los Angeles one is still popular, as is the Burbank one. You think it's probably the Las Vegas one will come back soon. And he was talking about the restaurant, which cost about $1 million to upgrade that restaurant that was there. Yeah, I guess it's in bad shape, that restaurant that was upstairs. Silver Linings, I think it was called. So they're looking at maybe bringing something down where Ramones has their little coffee shop on the first level. I was thinking of something going on there. And we had a very good, it was a little 12-minute video of some Native Americans talking about their issues, especially around Highway 96 and what's going on up there with first it was fire, there was the fire issue, then there was other weather situations that happened. It was a very good video that we saw. The Highway 101 Eureka Arcata Corridor Project is requesting increased funds. They'll be coming back in June for the amount that they need. Everything has gone up in price, including the materials. And there was no Eureka police report on for the 101 corridor, which I really enjoyed. So I asked that be included. May is Bike Month. So there's a lot of, in fact, that day was Bike to Work Month, and some of the people both biked over to the meeting. But anyway, we talked about that. The last chance grade up in Crescent City area. It's a $50 million estimate. They're having another meeting on July 12th to talk with the folks about that. Is I think the highlights of my meeting, and I'm having my next meeting of the let's see, the Chamber of Commerce is going to be June 13th at 5:30, and the EDC Economic Development Commission is the next day at 4:30. So that's all I have there. Chris, did you attend any meetings?
REDEC last night was canceled, so our next meeting will be in June, and RCEA will meet on Thursday afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Ben, did you go to any meetings?
Nope, no meetings.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's all we have on that. The next item is the unaudited financial report from July 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022. Did you want to give us any highlights of that, Mandy, and what we've got going on as far as our financials are concerned?
Yeah, the financials are always a little bit misleading, just depending on the time that things are reported. Some of the transfers between grants and reimbursements haven't come in yet, so those will tend to catch up our revenues. We're still waiting for our property tax.
I was gonna ask
That's a
about
big
property
one, but
tax.
we feel that we finally got that situation resolved. They sent us, they have a new process that they hadn't let us know about. So we went through that process and we requested our fund balances, and our fund balances were wrong. So we had to go through a process to basically state that we didn't agree with the balances and requested additional backup, and we've now received a revised fund balance that's much more beneficial to the city and much more in line with what we thought. So we just completed the final request for that, so that money should be coming in. So that's the property taxes are a big gap.
Yeah.
So those will catch up. We also have some grant reimbursements that we're waiting for, and some reimbursement requests that are pending. So I think we're, things are trending in the right direction. We did also receive a determination that will be beneficial to the city regarding some of our supplemental law enforcement funding, that we'll be able to apply a greater share of that to our sheriff contract, and that fund has continued to increase over the years. So going into our next budget cycle, we'll be able to account for that. So that'll be helpful, as we have lost the revenue from Blue Lake Power. They have ceased to pay, which we had anticipated that would happen, but we did project at least one payment for this financial cycle that we haven't received. So that's a shortcoming. So we believe we'll be able to make that. We're in the process of doing that.
Okay.
We're working through some issues with that right now. There's some materials on the site that Humboldt County is working with them to remove, and before we take the next step as far as an unlawful detainer action, we'd like to continue to facilitate them removing those materials prior to us. If something were to, if they were to walk away at any point, there's things that we really don't want to have left under our control. So we're working through that process right now. And we're starting to work on budgets. We're in the audit process. But overall, I think things are trending in a good direction. Sometimes when you see the numbers, they seem high when you're over by this much percentage, but then when you look at the fund's actually very small. So, you could be over by $900 and it looks like you've overspent by 20%. So, but I think we're going to be doing okay for our budget. And then we'll be working with Bridget to refine the water and wastewater projections and that process, which will be very helpful. It helps us to get more in line with accepted policies and financial management. We're going to be going through and doing some upgrades to our personnel policies. We're still trying to find someone to take on our financial policy updates. Apparently that's a much harder person to find these days. I thought it'd be a little easier. We've been trying for about 9 months to find someone, a consultant who would take that on, and we have been unable to find that yet. But yeah, there's some of the numbers look really good. Some are a little bit lower than anticipated, but overall, I think we're going to be okay.
Any questions or comments from council about our financial report? Any questions or comments from public? Okay, Yeah, I wrote down budget as a future agenda item because we're looking at June 30th.
Yep.
It's looming, and so it's kind of nice to have
Yeah.
at least a sample of, an estimated budget of
Yep.
what might look like. Maybe
Yeah,
at the next
nice.
meeting.
Yeah, the nice thing is, we've done so much cleanup on the city's accounting. We've got a pretty good template, we don't really change too much year to year. Our programs are pretty much the same. We have the same staffing levels. So it's getting easier and easier to make more consistent projections and to turn over a budget a little bit faster. So,
Yes, it
so
should.
we're anticipating at the June, if we can have a special meeting, the first or second week of June, possibly, we can do a presentation of a draft budget, and then we can bring you back a final budget for consideration at the end of the month.
Well, it sounds like Ben is not going to be available
Yeah.
for the month, for most of the month of June. If you're looking at. like,
I will
the
be
second-
re-entering the jurisdiction for the meeting.
For the 28th.
Yeah, I will be coming back into town for that.
Well, she's
Re-entering.
talking about a meeting possibly on the second Tuesday, which would be the 14th Flag Day. Which is one of those tricky days because I have my EDC meeting that same afternoon, which makes it tricky.
I've work obligations all month,
Yeah,
so I'll be in the Bay Area.
yeah. Well, I mean, if we have to wait till the 28th to have the budget, at least the first draft of a budget, we can carry over into, July for finalizing.
And if there's a different day, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be on a Tuesday, if there was something that worked better. I do need to get that resolution before council, and it has to be in before the 14th.
Oh,
So if we wanted to just have a special meeting to address the resolution, and maybe a preliminary budget, even if Ben wasn't available, I could still get you all the documentation. And then you could consider the budget for our regular meeting. So, on the 28th.
yeah, the 28th would be our regular meeting. The 21st is the week before that. The 14th, I'm not happy about having it that day because that EDC meeting is at 4:30. I mean, we could have it.
What
that
about
day.
the 7th?
Well, we had
or-
thought about the 7th. I have city schools
Oh, that's
retirement
right.
party,
right.
but if we have it at 7, I could make it
Okay.
on the 7th. And you said that was okay. How's that for you, Chris, Karen?
Yeah, I can make that.
June
It's
7th.
7 on the 7th.
7 on the 7th. Okay,
Yeah.
I should be able to get back into town. Okay,
Great, thank you.
and maybe Alice can make it too. That would be good to confirm on that. All right, other future agenda items from council? I don't either. I'm wondering if we'll need to go into a closed session for the evaluation. It's possible. It's possible. We'll let you know. It won't be, it probably wouldn't be another time. Right. Okay, any other future agenda items from council?
Yes, will the water rate study come back at our next regular council meeting?
Yes.
I believe so.
We'll have to take- Yeah, we had to postpone that because Bridget wasn't here. Okay, I guess we're ready to adjourn. Oh, did you have one more thing?
No, nothing about the agenda. This is just, if I may, I should have brought it up when y'all were talking about the DDA, or whatever it's called, DDA. That attachment 3 of the DDA has a scheduled performance, and when there's supposed to, 30 days we do this, and then we have construction plans, permits, conceptual drawings, and all of that. In keeping with those performance timelines, I would like to ask, and maybe this was going to happen anyway, that there be public forums at various stages of this, in keeping with the scheduled performances in attachment 3, so that the public, the community can hear about what's going on away and not just have it come to the city council and y'all decide on something. So it's similar to what you did before, but in keeping with that, it's attachment 3 scheduled performances, and they're pretty narrow. Sometimes they're within 30 days, you have to do this, or 45 days. But I'm not saying before every one of those things, but when there's a topic like the design, construction plan, conceptual drawings, scheduled public meetings, not in keeping with every one of the scheduled performances, but in association with something that's going to be decided on by the council. And so in keeping with that, I just wanted to encourage and ask for that. And as a part of this process with Danco and this DDA, because they have timelines and the public, the community wants to be a part of what goes into that. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up, which I didn't do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're at adjourn.
Oh,
motion to adjourn.
Adeline, I would like to also, this is Lori Ponte. I would like to also support what Lisa just requested. And I would also like to thank Lisa for being at your meeting. I'm in the comfort of my office, and I would just like to let the council know that I appreciate her time and her expertise and due diligence with the documents that she has been able to look at. And I would just like the council to know that there are people in the community that appreciate her time and effort, as well as the council's.
Thank you, Laura.
Welcome.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Chris Karen. Any further discussion from council? Any from public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, dudes. Thank you. Bye. We're adjourned. Thanks, Lisa. See ya.
All right, thanks everyone. How are you feeling, Chris? Oh, he went off.
Oh,
Chris